When we had our first example, our very basic OpenAI request, if we'd said, my name is Craig, and we sent it, it would come back saying, hello, Craig. If we now ask it, what is my name? It's going to come back and say no. Because as we saw when we did our basic agent, every request is stateless. It's just what we send up in that particular request. And as we can see in this example here, all we're doing is we're sending up our system prompt and the user question. There's no way that the response is saved, so it doesn't know it. Now, if we go to, for example, this one, which is the O4 chat with memory. If I give it a question of, say, if I say my name is Craig, and I send it, it's going to come back and say, great, how can I help you? If I say, what is my name? It's going to go back Craig. If I say I live in Brighton, if I say, what is my name? And where do I live? It's now able to answer this question by saying, your name is Craig and you live in Brighton. So if we click F12, or if we right click on here and go to developer tools, more tools, developer tools, we will open up the chat history. And if we look, we can sort of see that the very first time in the messages is just the helpful assistant, the system content. Then in the second conversation, if we click on it, well, then later on, when we look at it, we'll see that we have all of these other messages, the system message, the user, my name is Craig, nice to meet you, what is my name, your name is Craig, I live in Brighton. This now becomes effectively the combined system prompt of the user questions, of the assistants, so that it has all of this information. And this is very much like, again, the RAG, that basically we've added in extra context while running the chatbot. And if we look at the code for this into O4 tool calling, O4 chat with memory, what we'll basically see is we're constantly appending the messages that when we get it back, every time we get a message, we're adding it into the message list. So if we come up here, messages.push, the answer we got back, this one's called assistant. We add back the content into it so it has all the messages in there. Hence the system prompt effectively is growing and growing, and therefore it has memory. It's limited by this context window of particular models. Nowadays they're like 200,000 K. A couple of years, well, I say years ago, about a year or two ago, it was like 4K worth of tokens. Now basically it's sort of very, very large. So we can store a lot of information, have very long conversations. And it means if you were to upload, shall we say, a big book, and that was the context that you're using, every time we make the request, that's being sent to and from the model because it's all in the messages. And that's where context engineering comes in to say, how can we make the amount of tokens that we send up as a part of our system prompt as efficient as possible. So let's have a look at that again. We can see the user calls. There's a little, in this particular example, saving it into local storage. That's a minor detail for UI. The idea here is that every message keeps getting added in. So as we're coming down, the full conversation history is sent. And then when we're working with that, it knows all of these information. So when we ask a question, it knows my name is Craig, it knows I live in Brighton. And that's memory. And again, if we look at the explainer, we can go through that looping around, a bit like tool calling where it loops around, keeps adding things in. Here we can actually use the browser local storage if you want to save it. Normally we don't, but in this particular example that was created by the AI, it added that in. So the complete workflow is add the user message to the messages array, render the message, receive a response from OpenAI, add that assistant messages to the messages array, and keep going round in a loop. And we can clear the chat confidentiality. So there's some issues evolved with sort of memory, context not working, losing information, duplicate message, growing token usage. This is context engineering, how we handle that context window, because that's the information that the AI can work on. That's its actual data. So there's some little bit more information in here. And if we're testing a conversation memory, it goes something like this. What is the capital of France? The AI responds, capital of France. How many people live there? It knows that their response to Paris. If we ask the question, so in fact what we can do is we can go back, because in the original version of this, close this down, and let's refresh and clear the chat. What is the capital of England? Sorry, I've got to send it out my API key. What we might now want to do is say, what is the population of it, of this city? It knows it's London, so it can go back. We didn't specify what is the population of London. We said, what about this city? It knows that this city is referring back to London. So that's memory and how we can have memory.